about consciousness. It's about who we are as beings on this planet, and why are we here, and what are we doing, and how is reality supporting us. And I do believe that we are here for evolutionary reasons of consciousness. And I think that the crop circles are something that support us in order to help expand what that is for our consciousness. I think we're on an evolutionary track that's accelerating. I think that we are on, that, you know, some kind of radical shift is coming. And here we are already in this talked about year, you know, 2012. And, you know, the conspiracies, it's interesting. This whole day actually feels like it's really been a lead up for me for this particular talk that I'm doing. This one is going to be a different take than ones I've done before. And I am focusing more on the conspiratorial side of it, so in this particular talk. So that's interesting for me. But on the other hand, since my real interest is in consciousness, the question is, what does that do to us to focus on that conspiratorial side? And is there something that the crop circles are giving us in order to help us be in better relationship towards what it is that's happening on the planet? So, let's see. Just letting you know where I'm coming from. I do want to develop a relationship that has more to do with being open to the reality through truth and beauty, really. Truth, you know, which means being open to what it is that's really going on. But beauty, you know, from the point of view that there's something that we are being served by on a very, very big scale. And that the crop circles in particular are really giving us a different relationship to who we are in relationship to the whole cosmos. So that's a good definitive bottom line. So whatever I say here, this is my opinion. And I'm not going to give you a history of the crop circles. I'm not going to give you the science. I'm not going to give you proofs. I'm not going to tell you who I think is making them. Actually, I take that back. Who I think is making them is that the universe at large, everything, you're making them. I'm making them. Right in this very moment, you're making exactly what these crop circles represent for you right now. So it's really important for you to listen to what it is that you yourself are carrying through this talk. This is an activation, and it's an activation really for us to wake up to who we are. And part of who we are is what it is that we're expressing and thinking and projecting. So, crop circles use an alchemical language. They really, I look at them as kind of mythopoetic totems in a certain way. They clearly use geometry, they clearly use number, they use the landscape, they use dates, they use references to all kinds of things that are in the collective consciousness. So this particular one looks like a basket. And not only does it look like a basket, it looks like a basket of baskets. And what is a basket? A basket is something that is woven. It's something that carries nurturance, nourishment. It's something, it almost looks like a tray, something that I could present. I'm presenting to you this talk on this tray of trays. In the alchemical language, it's also holographic. The way a hologram works is that you know, they shoot a laser. They shoot a laser at an object, and they have a sensitive film that is able to pick up the refractive light that comes off the object, and somehow, I don't really know what the technology is, but when you look at the film, it looks like a three-dimensional expression of the object. And the thing that's really interesting is that if you cut a little piece off of the hologram and you look at that little piece, you still see the picture as a whole of what it is that the picture was. You know, it looks like, you know, if I was taking a picture of this computer and I cut off this little corner, it would look like you would think that it would look like the floor, but actually you'd be seeing the whole picture that was taken from that perspective. So it's limited perspectives, but it's still the whole picture. And I think that's counsel for us. So we are each a holographic film in a certain way, and to be able to know that we're looking through our own perspectives at something. So again, being aware of your own projections. So what is it about circles? This one, I chose this one because this one, clearly it's a circle, but there's a lot of chaos going on inside of it. It's kind of hard to understand. And in a way, circles are hard to understand. They're very hard to measure. In order to find the measurement of the circumference of a circle, you have to use this number that we call pi, which is interesting to apply pi to a circle. You know, looks like you could cut it up into pie slices. But what pi does, it's a transcendent, irrational number. Already, it's poetic. And it references the center of the circle to the circumference of the circle. You have to know where the center is in order to be able to measure the circumference. So again, this is the same poetry going on. So we have this one that's a circle, and this one is chaotic, and this one is quite orderly, and it's woven, it's clearly woven. And then this one came down in 1993. The circle, this ring, it's actually pretty rare to have had a crop circle that was just a ring with nothing laid in the center of it. Of course, this one does have something in the center of it. It has a crossroads. And it's an interesting crossroads. It's not two roads completely going over it. It's one road, and then there's something else coming off of it. And they clearly signified, in 1993, they gave us a ring that says we're at a crossroads and there's a different path to take. And like I say, it's rare to have found a crop circle, especially a very large one, which this one was, that is just a ring. However, this one did have one. This one's been talked about a lot. It actually started like this. In 2000, this was on July 15th in 2008. This is a solar system. There's a date written into this solar system. If all of those are orbits, they're fainter ones in the center that are the closer planets, and the larger planets on the outside. Pluto is indicated there as well. And if you take each of these circles, little dots, and say those are planets, and find the date where those planets will be in that array, surprise, surprise, it's December 21st, 2012. Actually, there's a little bit of controversy. It might have been December 23rd, 2012, but it's close. It's close. It's definitely close. So it started off this way on the 15th, and then on the 22nd of July, which 22 over 7 is pi, by the way. It's a approximation of pi. It's not exactly pi, but it's the way that Pythagoras came up with calling it pi is 22 over 7. So this ring came down later, a week later, after this originally came down. And then there were some changes that also happened. These lines where the farmer had thought that he was going to mow out the thing, I guess he was not happy with it being on his land, although every year this field gets something in it. But he didn't mow out the whole thing. He only went down his tram lines. And then the sun that was in the center expanded. It expanded to cover the orbits of Mercury and Venus. Mercury is the planet of the head, and Venus is the planet of the heart. So the light of the sun has gotten large enough to cover those orbits of the head and the heart. And then this ring appeared next to it. And this ring, you know, is the size of the solar system. It's completely empty. It's completely empty. So what could this possibly mean? I like meaning. I like poetry, I like meaning. And I like letting the crop circles speak to me in that way. I think they're meant to be used in that way. They clearly evoke meaning. So, what could that mean? Could it mean that at this date, at this 2012, December 21st date, that the solar system gets emptied? Some people have said that these look like organelles, and that maybe this is a cell, and all the organelles have been cast out of the cell. It also looks kind of like dross. It also, I mean, maybe you've heard, maybe some of you have heard that remote viewers have looked at this date, and they've been trying to get something on this date, and they can't seem to penetrate what's happening on December 21st, 2012. But so maybe that's what this is expressing, kind of this blank wall. And then everybody's come to watch, see what happens. And that does seem like what's going on. Even the board of directors, you know, there's so many councils out there, supposedly, you know, the Council of Nine and the Galactic Federation, and, you know, all these different entities, group entities that seem to be witnessing. They've all come, and something big. It seems to portend some large event. There's a million. Every one of you has a correct interpretation, and please honor what I say is just what I say. And I'm weaving a story here. It's like I like to say that I'm. You know how they used the songs of ABBA to create the musical Mamma Mia? Well, I'm doing Crop Circles the musical. It's like I've made the songs of the Crop Circles tell a story, and so that's where we're going. So how do we come to terms with this date? The fact is we're dreaming it into existence. Okay. So this was in August of 2005. On East Field, also well-attended crop circle field. It's a scarab. Do you know the story of Jung having spoken with a client, doing some psychoanalysis, and the client was talking about a dream, and in the dream a scarab beetle was, which is, you know, an Egyptian, an important Egyptian totem, to go back to that word, symbol, had been figuring largely in her dream, and Jung kept hearing this tapping on the window, and finally he got up to look, and a scarab beetle was at the window trying to get in, and apparently it's rare for scarab beetles to have been in that particular part of Germany, I guess, or Switzerland at that time. So he found that highly significant. This got well published. It's a well-known story. So you know the importance of the scarab beetle with our dreams. The scarab, the name of the Egyptian scarab god is Khepra, and Khepra was a sun god. Had hawk wings, and the meaning of Khepra was self-generating. A scarab beetle is the one they roll the dung. You know, is that the sun or is that a piece of shit? Is the question. You know, they roll the dung, and then they put their eggs into the dung ball, and it goes into a hole. And then the Egyptians would see that, you know, some time later there would be a whole bunch of new little scarab beetles coming out. So they assigned this particular metaphor, this ability of this particular spirit being to be able to self-generate from waste product, basically. This is a very good symbol for us right now. So Khepra spins the cycles of life and assists in our transformational processes. He helps us to recognize our God self so that we can begin to co-create the life we desire. this is good counsel. So this one was in 2006, in June, by the Uffington Horse. The Uffington Horse, actually, I was just looking at where this was on the map last night. The Uffington Horse was actually like looking directly at it, pointing to where this crop circle was. The Uffington Horse and their horses carved into the landscape in England, that under the soil surface, which is only, the topsoil is only a few feet thick, it's chalk, at least in this area of Wiltshire and a lot of England. And one of the things that they discovered this thousands of years ago apparently, the Uffington Horse was carved in Neolithic times. So people are not even sure if it's supposed to be a horse. Some people call it the Uffington Dragon, which is interesting for our dragon year. So I look at this one and I see, look at your projections. Again, this same theme. So we have the ring is the hole, and then inside there's a circle, and then from this circle are these radiant lines coming out, and then there's another reflector over here that is a circle that's perhaps the same size as this one, we're not sure, but it's radiating concentric circles, and you get this interference pattern. And people say that actually that's what reality is interference patterns. What we're seeing is the projection of our minds into the interference pattern of what everybody else's minds are, and that's why we see what we see. So notice your projections. This is one of the themes here. This was in 2010, July 27th. This is the meeting of two sets of those concentric rings. With the crop circles, basically, you know, they're working with duality. The crop can either be up or it can be down. You know, the canvas it's a black and white canvas, and even though it's brown and tan, it's a black and white canvas. You know, they're two colors, and so it's basically a duality. So now, how do they work with duality in order to get its past duality? They put all kinds of meaning in it, all symbology and geometry and story and location, all those things I was talking about before. So with this one, it seems like it's an expression of this meeting of the dualities. And the two on the outside, they're equal, and they would have come up and bumped against each other. But there's this third lens that's on top. It looks like a lens to me. It really looks like a lens to me. And somehow it has taken this meeting that would have been in opposition and turned it in such a way that you now have an infinity symbol going on. What would have been in opposition now becomes a dance. And that's because you have the third aspect on top of the duality. Okay, so this is the location where it was. It was at a place called Beggar's Knoll. The locations often have incredible poetic justice in them. It was next to a chalk pit. This is a chalk pit, and the two large circles, you know, the two outer circles that were in opposition, were arranged facing the chalk pit. They were actually arranged, there's a mound in this chalk pit, it was like pointing right at it. And the other alignment is to this horse over here. That's one of the horses. This is actually, other than the Uffington Horse, which is Neolithic, this one is in Westbury, and it's the oldest one of modern times. It's only a couple hundred years old, maybe 300 or 400 years old, but nonetheless, it is the oldest one of if you want to call it 300 or 400 years of modern of their time. And so the lens somehow is referencing something that seems a bit more sacred than a chalk pit. This was on July 18th of 2010. The location of this one was very important as well, especially given what we know what has happened. This, you know, here these two concentric rings have crossed over each other. There's a river right here, and across the river, this was pointing, it's wonderful to have this little pointer, there was an aging nuclear power station. An aging nuclear power station that was on the opposite bank of the river. And are we now feeling like this may have been prescient in some way? That, you know, it looks like, you know, this was, the one on the river, it was over this one. It looks like the Japanese earthquake and tsunami warning to me. So we're being presented with opposites to reconcile. And this is true in outer events too. This is the conspiracy thing that's going on. We're getting opposite information. I'm overloaded with opposite information. I have information, I have disinformation. I'm getting a bit overloaded, I have to tell you. And I've really been opening myself up to let myself hear all these stories that have been out there lately. And it's something to keep myself grounded and breathing around.
That's symmetry. It shows symmetry. There's nothing dissonant about that at all.
Well, the dissonance is the story that we put on top of it. And yes, that's a very good way of looking at it. That the symmetry, there's nothing to resist in this opposition. It's only if we get stuck. And so I'm going to be going into that. So July 25th, 2010, all these last ones were from 2010. Looks kind of like that, doesn't it?
Wow.
But it's on 5. 5 is a number of biology. 5 is, numbers are really interesting. Anybody here a number geek?
A little bit.
I love numbers. So, you know, 4 is the number for matter. You know, just look around. Well, actually, this one's an interesting construction here. What?
What was the date?
This was July 25th, 2010. 5 is the number where you get another step that gives you perspective on matter, or brings spirit into matter. And that is the number 5. It's biology. It's the 5 spiral. It's Fibonacci sequence. It's square double spirals here. It's a Mayan symbol, and it means the jaguar snouts. And the jaguar is the spirit guide to entrance into the underworld. And it's the one that can go, but it's the only cat that actually is okay with water. And so it can travel between worlds. So I find that there's avenues going into the center there, through this kind of biohazard, towards biology, through the underworld. Beautiful. This was on July 12th of 2010 too. And it was at a place called Guy's Cliff. Guy's Cliff. Is there poetic justice in this or not? It's like you have a 6-6 going on, and it's made from it is a Vesica Piscis, but the two it's almost like blades. I mean, I look at this and I think that those could close and chop off something or other. That feels slightly threatening, even though it's beautiful. And there's a reflection of it on the inside that is the same design, but it's completely flattened down to the lay. And unless you're really paying attention, you might not even see it. This kind of feels like the hidden side in a certain way. And that if we think of it only as dualities, another piece to look at this though is that it's woven in such a way that it would not be able to close. I mean, if all of them closed, then yeah, but you wouldn't be able to get any one duality to close, which helps me to breathe a little bit. You know, from here I was looking at 666, is there another? And then I started thinking about the dates, and I was looking for a 666 date, and I looked on June 6, 2006, and there wasn't anything that came down on that date. But there was something that came down on the 24th of June, 2006, and 24 is 2 plus 4 is 6. It's the type of thing you can do in alchemy. So this is a 666 that came down on 666. And the location was a place called the Pilgrim's Way in Burham, Kent. It's a little bit wonky. Now this one came down in the middle of the day, And there's a park right across the street. It was also on a hill that if anybody had been, there are also houses all around. If anybody had been in that field creating the crop circle at the hours when they know it would have had to have been created, it would have been seen. And the geometry is a little wonky. I think you can probably see that. And this is one of those ones that seems to be, you know, taking the thought that they all have to be exact geometry and kind of tipping that on its ear. And then it's pointing. It seems to be pointing at more circles. And in fact, it was pointing at more circles. It was pointing at this one, which was just a couple fields away. And this one has a feeling, it's a 12, actually, instead of a, well, it's actually 24. So it's somehow it's re-referencing the 666 into something else. And the date on this one was the 12th of July, so it came down a little bit later. And they're not sure what the other ones were that it was referencing. But I just want to show you, I was finding a lot of this last night as I was kind of finalizing this. I was doing my research. And I went on Crop Circle Connector, and look what happened! Wow. This was, it's in the back here. There's a certain alignment going on. That was amazing to me that that would come up, that I would somehow be given that access number at that particular moment last night. I'm trying to understand, you know, I've been holding that numbers are what's the word I'm looking for? They're neutral. It depends on what we impress upon them. It depends on what we project onto them. So I was thinking, so why is 666? I've been wondering about this for a long time. Why is that considered such an evil number? What is it about that? And I actually just found something about that. So this is from the research of Marco Rodin. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Marco Rodin. He's a contemporary of Nassim Haramein, a friend of his. Marco has done some amazing research with numbers and being able to use these number patterns to make free energy devices. It's basically, he calls it the mathematical fingerprint of God, and you can apply his research to almost anything. So, but in this, what I just want to show you first of all is that the 9 is the control. 9 is the whole. I don't know if any of you have ever studied the Enneagram, but you might identify with that as well. So the 9 is the whole, and the 3 and the 6 is a circuit. The 6, 9, 3, 3, 9, 6, 6, 9, 3, it's a circuit. It's not a triangle, it's a circuit. Now what happens, it's actually an infinity symbol. The way that he describes it is that it goes to 3, you double 3, 3 is doubled as 6, you double 6, it becomes 12, 1 plus 2 is 3, goes back to 3, 12 doubled is 24, 2 plus 4 is 6, goes back to 6. You can keep doing that, and it will keep, with this doubling circuit, it will keep going back and forth. Now, if you stay on one side, you've really overloaded the circuit. You don't go anywhere. If you do 6, 6, 6, and the circuit actually goes 3, 9, 6, then it switches polarity, so it does another 6, 9, 3, switches polarity, does another 3, 9, 6. So the infinity symbol is 3, 9, 6, 6, 9, 3, 3, 9, 6. But if you stay on 6, 6, 6, 6, that third 6, you've gotten stuck. And I think that there's something about the conspiracies that are trying to get us stuck. And it has something to do with that. So that's just a little bit of mathematical poetry. Here we have a circle with 9. And the center, the 3, 9, 6, is the infinity circle, the infinity line, that actually also moves in the yin-yang. The yin-yang has the 3 and the 6 and the line in between that moves between them. So this is an expanded expression of that yin-yang. And actually it is in 9 across. I think you can probably see that. But it's also got the 6 dots, the 6 rays, and the 6 dots on the other side. You have a 6-6 going on here, but maybe you could count it as 7. There's room for a last dot on both ends of those 6s. And if you count the outer edges instead of the bands, then it becomes 7. There may be counsel in this. Also to expand on what's in between the duality. That's actually where the dance and where you're going to find your step to the next level. All right. This was June 20th in 2011. This was this last year. And take a sip of water. Some people think that this was definitely hoaxed. You know, the thing about hoaxing these days, who's doing it? We're doing it. Who's doing it? We are as much a part of the consciousness that is creating the crop circles as anything else. And it's all poetic justice at this point. There's another one I'll show you a little bit later where it's, even if we're doing it, it's like the scarab at the window. Maybe the bugs are doing it. You know, it's like, it's all part of the dream, and not to resist what the messages are. Everything is real, everything is symbolic. I want to read you a little bit about this crass symbol. Hold on. Crass was a punk band. I think it's really interesting that they've chosen a punk band because, you know, supposedly the music, you know, when they've done experiments with music with plants, that rock music, plants tend to not like rock music all that much. And, they tend to prefer Indian ragas. But Crass, on the other hand, Crass was a seminal punk band. They were into anarchy, and it was an anarchy punk movement. They advocated direct action, animal rights, and environmentalism. And they criticized the mainstream culture and attempted to subvert it with messages promoting feminism, anti-racism, anti-war, anti-globalization. They used this info-disinfo thing in order to be able to break through the ways that we are blinding ourselves in order to make an expression of something. Whoops. This particular symbol was amalgamated from several icons of authority, including the Christian cross, the swastika, the Union flag, and the Ouroboros. And the Ouroboros is the snake that's biting its own tail. And that's a symbol that's been used a lot in the crop circles. And they did all of that to symbolize the idea that power will eventually destroy itself. And I think that we're at that point, we're coming to that point right now. So this feels, even if it was hoaxed, it feels like it's extremely timely to me. And it's been pinned at this point. It's like, you know, that's the original symbol. And the center has been found in this one. So, and it's not the first time that the crop circles have had a punk band in them. In fact, this was in 1997. And this was a band called, Poetic Justice Everywhere, I love it. It was a band called the Sneaker Pimps. And they were playing at a festival called the Phoenix Festival. So, I mean, how's that for, you know, a juxtaposition of disinformation, people, you know, in something that's to a rising of our rebirthed self. I'll just let that symbol work itself for you. This last year, this was also a punk band called the Cavalera Conspiracy. And which Cavalier sounds like cavalier to me, the Cavalier conspiracy. It's interesting that we get even the word conspiracy going on. But this one, it's interesting. There had been a group, I read a report, there had been a group that had been doing a tour like a week before this came down, and someone in the group was making notes, and someone else in the group was saying, you know, I just have a feeling that they're going to do another one in that field over there, actually pointing to where this field was, somewhere around there. It's going to have some reference to pi. Do we have a reference to pi here? I would say yes. Also, this past year was 11/11/11. There was something about the symmetry of that number that a lot of people found very, very important, and the whole way that it's set up of this, almost like Stonehenge looks like, and but the forces of buildings and concrete and structure are coming up against each other and working against each other. Cavalier conspiracy. Okay, this is an old one. This was 1991 in August. It kind of looks like this one in a certain way, which I think is interesting. This was in response, supposedly, probably, in response to an American had gone out in the field and stomped out into the grass, into the wheat. Might have been in the grass, budding the wheat. He stomped out, talked to us, so that they would know that we want them to talk to us, as if they don't already know. And then a few days later, this appeared. So, controversy. Controversy everywhere. This is really amazing to me. I've known about this for years, except I didn't know about the controversy until just recently. So, there was a fellow that put out an award. You know, if you can come up with a translation for this, we'll give you £1,000. And there were several very, very good, very interesting translations. And like I say, all interpretations are correct. They're all feeding the dream. One of the first ones that came out was a kind of an ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic type of thing, not hieroglyphic, but some other kind of script that meant creator, wise, and loving. There was another one that was looked like Ephete order or Essene order, or something. The Essene order being a group of community of holy people, or you know, people following some teaching. There was another one where if you play with it a little bit, and you can do that with alchemy, you can like add a line here and it becomes something else, or put a mirror up to it and it becomes something else. And so there was another translation that came out that was, I have hidden at present. And then there was another one that came out that had to do with holding up a mirror, and it looked like an ancient Hebrew script that meant a new breed of people. So all of these together. Oh, and then the one that has gotten the most press is an ancient Latin, which is oppono astos, which means I oppose, or we oppose, acts of cunning and deception. Ooh. So all of these things we've heard before. So, you know, just to give you that list again, hold on, it's in here somewhere. It's a great list. You know, I've hidden for now, creator God, new breed of human, and creator wise and loving. What was that last one? Oh, and we oppose acts of cunning and deception. And that's something that we've also heard before. So now we get a new one that's just recently come to light, where someone had been talking about, there was a researcher by the name of Terence Meaden, who was, around this time, was trying to propose that they had something to do with plasma vortexes. And this fellow was overheard talking about it, that they had gone out and stamped out half of a message, and that they were going to come back and do the rest of the message, but that there were too many people then that were in the circle and they could never finish it. But had they been able to finish it, it would have said, "Meaden talks shit." And so Peter Sorensen wrote out that I don't have the slightest hope that those who say humans are not making the formations will believe any of these as man-made jokes, but those who agree with me that artists are flattening the crop will laugh right along. Along. I don't know why it says along. I didn't type that. So, you know, but does that mean that all of those other interpretations aren't right? I say no. I say they're all right. Now we're getting the information-disinformation displayed because that's what's coming out into our dream. This one was this past year, June 1st, 2011, a little snake in the grass. Here it is again. What's interesting about this one, it might be a worm, it might be a snake, kind of like the worm theory somehow. I like snakes, but the worm feels like a little more nefarious to me. But some hours earlier than when this came out, I don't know if you can see that there's kind of a script or something going on, some kind of hieroglyphic on the back, on this worm's back. So a few hours earlier, a fellow by the name of Oliver Larry Brasseur had posted a link on a Facebook crop circle website and suggesting the fellow who was running this website had been put out that they should go out and do some kind of experiment putting a crop circle out in the field. And Larry had come up with a code that it's a symbol, you know, it's actually based on a Baha'i symbol, but it's a relatively simple code just based on a vertical and 3 lines. And lo and behold, some hours later, this appears with this code written into it. And Larry recognized it immediately and translated it. And it says, "Beware 666, Sam 3. And it could be 61818, but actually it's probably 666 given what we know. And I have no idea what 61818 would mean. So, but beware 666 Sam 3. So Sam 3 sounds like a Bible quote. Just want to tell you what that is. Samuel 3. This is from the New International Version. The boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. Let's see, let's cut to the chase. Basically, Samuel started hearing voices at night, and they were calling him. Where have we heard that before? And he would run to his master Eli, and he would say, "Here I am, Lord, you called me." And Eli would say, "No, I didn't. Go back, lie down." And he would hear it again. And for the 3rd time that he came out and said, "Well, here I am, come on, you quit calling me." And well, actually, he probably was not that rude to Eli. Eli realized that someone else was calling this boy. And he said, "Go back, lie down, and if he calls to you again, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went to lay down, and then in this translation, the Lord came and stood there. Lord to me, the word Lord sounds like lorded over to me, and it doesn't feel like it's a beneficent thing. It feels like a power play to me, but sorry. Then the Lord came and stood there, calling as at other times, "Samuel, Samuel." And then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." And the Lord said to Samuel, "See, I'm about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears it tingle. At that time I will carry out against Eli, who was his master, everything I spoke against his family from beginning to end. For I told him that I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons made themselves contemptible, and he failed to restrain them. The guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering." Okay, so it seems to be referencing that. This also feels very timely to me.
Could you show that snake
Okay, then this one, I'm showing you guys all the ones with conspiracy script in them. This one came down on July 4th of this past year. This had some great research done on it. Some people say that this is an expression of pi. If you add, you can see those numbers on the left or in the top and the numbers on the bottom, so they add up to 22/7 in a couple different ways. There's a couple other ways that this fellow has read it. I think this is research by Red Colley, if you're on those boards at all. However, someone else has put out, this was another one of those half of a English script, and they would have had to turn it over, reverse it in order actually for it to do this. That's how it came down at the field. This is it differently. And then extended. Glicker, there's a researcher that I like a lot, his name is Michael Glickman, and he seems to think that all the crop circles are made by almost all of them at least, are made by very brilliant, otherworldly intelligence, and I certainly think they have a hand in it, that's for sure. There's just too much going on that even if humans are doing it, there's more going on. So, again, we have another information-disinformation campaign going on here. And here's the classic. This was Crabwood Farm. If you ever hear about the Crabwood alien, this is it. This was on August 15th in 2002. That disc there is actually has ASCII written in it. It's an ASCII code. It says, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe," probably the word is believe, although there's controversy about that particular word. "There is good out there. We oppose deception." Heard that one? Conduit closing. So the conduit closing may be this end times, this 2012 date, or 2012 through 2033 that Colin was talking about. There's tremendous amounts of controversy about this one, whole articles. In fact, I'll give you just a little piece of it. Oh, well, you can't, I'll read it to you. Crabwood of August 15th, 2002 marked a 50-year anniversary to the day of when the Grays flew over Washington, D.C. And some people think that this was a warning, you know, beware about our contact with the Grays that were officials. Like this one has 3 dots on his epaulette, you might say, or those might be the ships in his command, perhaps. Let's see. It was featured. I'll read this. This was from Red Colley. This particular research. Finally, this is quoting him. "Finally, we can return now to the major subject of this article. 50 years after all those strange events transpired in the early 1950s, an amazing crop picture appeared at Crabwood in England on August 15th, 2002. It showed the unpleasant visage of a military gray alien, a 3-star general, pictured on an old-fashioned 60-line TV screen from the 1950s. The latter feature was meant to date our first contact with those Grays in the early 1950s. And of course, they gave us a lot of the technology to create things like these discs. Of course, she says. Let's see if I know. These are the stories. These are the conspiracies. I'm showing you this one. This was August 26, 2000. A little baby alien, cute little baby alien. This was at a location, Cheryl. And then this past year, another one occurred in this very same location, and perhaps you've seen it. Oh, yeah. People call this the smoking alien. Now, before you jump to the conclusions, oh my God, that one's got to be made by humans, they were really smoking something high. Take a look at some of the geometry that's in this. That triangle there is the Great Pyramid proportions. and it's all over. It's just like ringing through this alien. The arcs that were used to make the eyes and the arc on the pipe, or, well, we'll call it a pipe right now, is the person would have had to have been standing in undamaged field in order to make those arcs. It was actually quite pristine, the lay of this particular one. So let's go back and see, well, what is it that's happening here? You know, it could be, hey gang, it's 2012, time to wake up. Clearly this guy is like blazing with awakeness. You know, he's got full spectrum 7 times 4 going on. His third eye has a little cowlick on it, and there's something going on. And then there's also something over his, he's got a collar. I mean, we've actually seen this particular emblem in the fields before, but never with the collar, never with nostrils. You know, one can first assume, the first impression is that he's smoking a pipe. However, why would he need nostrils if he was pulling in air? Maybe he's blowing on this pipe. Maybe this pipe is not to smoke. Maybe this pipe is making a sound. Maybe this pipe is a horn. Maybe this pipe is a shofar. Anyone here Jewish? The shofar is the ram's horn that's blown on New Year's Day. They blow it once a year at Rosh Hashanah. They also blow it another time, and I'll get to that in a moment, actually. So that's what a shofar looks like, which sure does look like that pipe, the one on the bottom. And, you know, the clarion call. Anybody been following what's happening around the earth with all of the interesting sounds that are being played? Interesting sounds. Go on YouTube. Sounds. They've been referencing sound for a long time. In fact, Colin Andrews, just to pull him in again, early on, you know, when he was trying to research, what is it that's doing this? One day he was standing in a field and he just said, God, give me a clue as to what it is that's making these. And he was inundated with this sound, and there was no crop circle there, but the sound came on and had a strong effect on it. The sound is something that's important, and maybe the clarion call. Okay, so here we have the duality. This is kind of a never-ending duality. This this is actually a really interesting crop circle. You know, so if you take a circle and you divide it in half, put circles in that stretch across the diameter, and you add the circumference here and the circumference here, add that together, it equals the circumference of the whole. So if you keep going, you know, these 4 circles, the circumference of those added together equals the circumference of the whole. The circumference of these 16 little circles, if you add those all together, it equals the whole. So what's not dual in this, the only thing that's not dual in this is the whole. You have to have a perspective on the whole. The other thing is that if you look at it, it's also a yin-yang. You know, you can see it has that form in it. The same proportion is also in our bodies. Actually, if you divide yourself in half, your first division is going to be at your genitals. The second division is going to be at your heart. Third division is going to be at your neck. Fourth division, there's 5 divisions somehow. It's like, and it can probably keep going, you know. So, and it's the same, exactly the same thing. You see the yin-yang? It's very large. If you imagine, it's implied that the whole is out here. And then you have this line. The line between the duality is where the digestion takes place, where the action is. This is a heat-seeking viper. This was this past year. No, it wasn't. It was July 29th, 2010. Over here, there was a little forest called Adder's Copse. And adder is the European viper. And this is a heat-seeking viper. It's these little, you can tell because of these little pits behind its eyes. Those are used to detect what's hot and possibly strike. Anybody feeling like there's things hot around them where it might be good to have something that could strike at the right moment? It's all counsel, it's all part of the dream. It's not a forked tongue, it's not a dual tongue. It's a trident tongue. The trident is the sword of Shiva, the destroyer. You know, it's also Kali. It's you know, we need to break some things down, but we also need to digest them. And it's at the center where it's 11 times been through some kind of cycle. This 11th dot, the dot of the 11 is the number of mastery, where some kind of balance is going to be maintained. If you can find that mastery in the center, then there may be some way to deal with this duality. So this is a four-way reflection of yin-yang, and it has this key in it. So taking this yin-yang symbol and knowing that it can be reflected in, out, within, over, above, through. I've come back here because it's important to look within, but it's also important to look without. This is a fractal expression of duality going in. It's always going to be something that we haven't included or considered. This is a fractal expression of duality going out. And there's a whole story behind this particular one, but I'm not going to go there right now. This is a communication device, and this was, well, I'll tell you just a little. It was indicated at the bottom of the Arecibo array reply that came the following year. If you're into the crop circles, you might know something about that, but I'm not going to go there right now. But I will tell you something about inclusion or considering. It's always going to be something that we haven't yet included or haven't yet considered. Inclusion, in claudare, it's what has been looked at within, what's been held within, closed, claudare, closed within. And consider is with the stars, sitter is the stars. So we need to have both these directions referenced. It's very important. This one was a fractal expression of 5. You have one star, the outer star, is pointing in one direction, looking in, everything else seems to be opposite. Here, the inner star is pointing in one direction, the fractal expression going out, I mean, here you're really considering, is everything is in the other direction. Here we have it referred to 6, a fractal expression of 6, and then we go within with the 6. Here we have 7, and then we go within with 7. Here we have 36. This one's very radiant, you know. It's 6, it's 36, it's, are those sugar cubes? I don't know. The hexagonal geometry with this radiant circle surrounded by 4 concentric rings. And then the same year, this going in, that something, there's definitely something similar about these two. Do you see that? And then instead, here the roundness is without. Here the cubes have been exploded within. So this little fellow was on 777. That's a lovely number. And a beautiful little crop circle where this carbon atom, we could say, is under pressure. And then the following year, that carbon atom has become radiant. You know, here we have the clear geometry that it's under. Here the carbon has become the seven-dimensional diamond. There's a reason why it's 7, but actually I can't quite go there right now. And it's become radiant with the round. So it may seem like we're going at a snail's pace. And in 1992, it sure probably felt that way. However, the date on that one, this is July 7th, 1994, and this was at Barbary Castle. They had started out calling this one an ant, but actually an entomologist verified that it is a dragonfly larva. And the dragonfly begins its life in the muck, in the mud, and this one's kind of got a little bubble around it or something. This dragonfly in 2009 finally has emerged, And just so that we got the point, in this same field was the phoenix, this beautiful phoenix again. And even though the sneaker pimps are probably out there somewhere, the phoenix is being referenced rather grandly. And you remember the one about notice your projections? Notice that our projections are dual. If you can see the duality that you hold, nothing to resist, like someone said back there, that there's the possibility of feeling the flight, the gentle flight in the breeze of the butterfly. This one came down in Holland. This is, if you can see, it was huge. It was claimed as a hoax, although I don't believe it. It's too beautiful and too perfect. This is the Vitruvian Man. You know, he's got his legs in both directions and arms in both directions. And this is a transformation. And, you know, even if it is a hoax, here's something, it's just to show you how incredible the dream is. The same day that came down, the same day that this ended up on the internet, this book by Bruce Lipton and Steve Behrman. Steve Behrman is Swami Beyond Ananda. They're local friends. This had its launch date, and it's the exact same symbol on there. So that's got to be poetic justice for you, whether it's done by humans or not. So I have a little sequence to just show you here. This was in August 2004. This has a feeling of the cosmos to me. It certainly seems to be referencing the Mayan symbology. These double wings and this blazing that's coming out. And then you have the jaguar nostrils again. So there's a feeling of that's referencing something about being able to go into the underworld, and the center is opening up. But here we have, in 2009, you see those same wings coming through the center. And the way that I interpret when you have the crescent is that how I see it is that there are two circles that have overlapped. It's an alignment. And so how I read this is there's an alignment going on in the center, and of course we know that there's a galactic alignment coming up, which is why the whole 2012 date is so significant, actually, is that there is a physical alignment coming up, and a galactic alignment. And then these wings maybe they're claws that have been in matter. They're spinning, and something else is opening up. Whatever those claws have been holding on to, there's movement going on, and something is getting birthed. The same symbol that you've got the alignment here, it looks like a head. Looks like that E.T. head, as a matter of fact. But it also looks like our heads. You know, we have that same thing, and there may be some alignment that's going on in our consciousness, and that like the E.T., the smoking E.T., where his pineal gland's been completely opened up and he's just blazing with information. This is crowning, and the galactic thighs, put it that way, are opening for this birth to come through. This same symbol was referenced in this one. This was in 2005. And here are the jaguar nostrils, also just them being square spirals. It's like there's what's supposed to be flowing and free has been squarified, but these squares have been, they're breaking down. Whatever it is, that square spiral is breaking down. There's some kind of code here that I have not seen anybody actually give a decent interpretation of yet. If you get interested, I'd like to do that. And then this symbol here, it's the same one. This is, we could have a huge alignment, the feathered headdress. Here's the galactic thighs of the mother. They've gotten very thin. This baby is super crowning. And it really looks like a crown there. And you have the square spirals once again. And that this, some people thought this looked like a mask. I think it looks like a bee. And then the bee is sitting into the center, and it's vibrating really fast. So there's some extra level of vibration. We're supposed to raise our vibration, maybe to the sweetness of the honeybee. And then what happens once we get out? I love this one. This was on 27th of August. I love them all. I love all my babies. 27th of August, 2008. This one is a Taurus. It's beautifully done. I mean, look at how this last one is overlapping the inner one, so it really looks like it's got the toroidal shape going on. And this is a spin of 9 circles onto a spectrum of 7. And this little funny Superman, with his cape flying, and it's almost like this toroidal field is going to be free energy for us. He even looks like he's got a little plug face there, and his symbol, his toroidal symbol on his chest. This was Marco Rodin's work, just to show that that map that 9 map also describes the toroidal field. And this is my last one. Okay, so this came down in Cheryl. Remember where the smoking alien was? And the next field was called Jubilee Plantation. And the shofar was blown. I told you there was another time the shofar is blown. The shofar is blown at Jubilee. The Jubilee year is the year after 7 times 7 years, the cycle of 7 times 7. It's the 50th year. If you look, this is a star, a 10-pointed star. It's like 5 times 10, 50. This has 50 reference in it. It's at the Jubilee year, what would happen, what would be consecrated, according to Leviticus, is that liberty is proclaimed throughout the land, and unto all inhabitants thereof it shall be a jubilee unto you, and you shall return every man unto his own clan. So and all debt is forgiven. I love this, especially with all the financial shenanigans that have been going on. May all debt be forgiven. May all of our beings feel that we are home with our own family, wherever that is. That you feel that you are returned to your clan. And that's where I am.
What was the
dropping this off. What?
What was the date?
The date on this one is 15th of August, 2011.
Thank you.
Wow.
Sign up for the Bay Area Crop Circle Study Group. It's also on Meetup. If you Google Bay Area Crop Circle Study Group, you'll see it. It's there. So give me some Q's, I'll give you some A's.
I have a question.
Yes.
Everybody
can hear you.
Sure. Any ideas if this is one or several species that are giving this, and are they present in this world? Are they extra-dimensional? Or any sense from anyone, either on a psychic level or...
There are lots of senses from lots of people. And yes to all of your questions. Some people say that they're all human. Some people say that they're everything. Personally, I do believe that there are other extra-dimensional beings, God, this is such a huge universe, and we are so heavily veiled. And, just look at the amount of information, disinformation that's even going on here that just makes your brain get more, it makes you want to just turn off. It's like, I'm not going to look at that anymore. Well, not me, but some people probably.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can we know yet until all the veils are released? Right. And then we can really see with clarity. I do think that's possible, and I do think that's coming. I think that this galactic alignment, the energy from Mama, big galactic breast of milk, that's coming down the pike, is going to be a great drink for our consciousness.
It's a really...
I'm impressed by everything you said.
Oh,
You
thank you.
filled this up with a lot of stuff. And you said something about stuck. One of the crop circles was talking about stuck.
Yeah, that's the 666 that I was talking about.
Yes, getting the people of Earth stuck in a certain, perhaps,
One
lifestyle.
perspective.
Here's two unusual questions. I've never heard these questions asked. Do the alien people, wherever they're out there, do they die? First question. Second question. If they eat, do they eat animal products such as hot dogs, hamburgers, milk, cheese? Do they
Okay,
eat them?
it's interesting. You know, of course, my first answer, the first thing that came up was, I have no idea.
Right.
But the second thing that comes up is, do I die? That's a very legitimate question, and one to be taken very seriously.
Oracle, the man, Larry Ellison, he publicly declared he's never going to die.
Right.
You know that.
Yeah. Well,
He's the first.
there's always transformation. Everything is transforming. Everything is always transforming. And is there something in me that never dies, is the question. So, and I don't really know the question. I don't know the answer. I'm voting for not dying. Definitely voting for that one.
Just food for thought.
Yeah,
Unusual
the
question.
food thing, that's interesting.
Read lots of other ones.
There's intake. We are open systems that are exchanging energy all the time. So my guess is that probably the whole universe is eating, excreting, digesting, evolving. What's that? I quote me.
Right there.
Yes.
Yeah, you can almost call it dream wheat, but
Say it again.
you can almost call it dream of wheat.
Dream of wheat. Oh, that's really good.
I've noticed that a major theme of your talk is about duality, yin and yang, thesis, antithesis, information, disinformation. The whole 666 thing has come up, including 18. Well, when you think of duality, or yin and yang, perhaps these are intimately connected. They are mirror images of one another. What is the mirror image of 666 but 999? And when you add 9 plus 9, you get, what do you think?
You get 9. You come back to 9. It always comes back to 9.
9 times anything comes back to 9.
Yes.
Which I believe in numerology, one of its functions is it's a number of completion.
That's right.
And so
It's
the
all,
666
that's why it's the number of
thing,
the whole.
you know, we've heard that it's evil and omen and all that kind of stuff, you know, courtesy of Hollywood. But the mirror image of it is 999, which is, 9 is my favorite number. I find myself surrounded by that. And just the fact that you can multiply anything times 9 and get 9. So I just, that's my comment. My question is, Colin Andrews is talking about some profound consciousness changes that are going on. Yet he is also a man who, through a lot of controversy and criticism, has gone against the grain, if you will, by suggesting, if not declaring, averring that most of the crop circles are hoaxes, i.e. man-made.
80% is what he said.
80% to be precise. Would you perhaps agree or suggest that even so, some form of consciousness is working through us?
Yeah, in fact, Colin says that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even through the hoaxers?
Yes.
Okay.
He says that as well. But yes, and I mean, you know, you can read the newspaper the same way I'm reading the crop circles. You know, there is consciousness working at every single level. In fact, oh, this was so incredible. The Crass thing that I was researching last night, one of their albums, I was just looking at this last night, one of their albums has a song called Feeding the 5,000. And I was sitting over there while, you know, all this other stuff was going on. And I noticed this book sitting there. It's the Talmud Emmanuel collected by Billy Meyer or something, or found by Billy Meyer. And I just, you know, I pick it up and I open it And lo and behold, what falls under my eyes is the feeding of the 1,000. And, you know, oh my goodness, you know, there is synchronicity, there is image, you know, to be really aware of what it is that you are projecting as you walk through life. And, you know, you'll be supported in a different way than if you're under the cowl of everything is conspiracy and they're all against me. I mean, you know, check your energy field right now and see what it is that you are running, and see if, you know, having witnessed all of this, you know, it makes you feel like there's a little bit more possibilities.
Marien, do you agree with Andrews that 80% are man-made?
I have no idea. It's a possibility. You know, but I don't have a problem with it anymore. You know, I think it's all part of the dream. And certainly 20% is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, it's a high statistic.
Yeah, that's a very high statistic. Hi.
I learned that the circles are, you know, created every summer, right?
Say every summer,
every
yes.
Summertime.
Yes.
In England, the majority. So how long does it last? Like,
They last as long as the field lasts.
So
You know, it's a
few
crop.
weeks, a few months.
It's weeks. The crop, in one of the ways that they used to tell if they were real or not, they're all real. They all actually exist, you know. But one of the, if they were authentically done, was if the crop continued to grow. If the crop wasn't damaged, it would continue to grow. So they would adjust over time. But you know, so then the farmer has to go and harvest his field. And at that point, it gets chopped down. Although some of them end up with ghost patterns that actually reappear the following year when the crop starts to grow, which means the soil's had something happen to it, you know.
And they're new every year, right?
Yeah. There are very few repetitions, although there will be themes that are repeated. But they're amazingly imaginative.
I think it's important to understand that there's a few different categories. There's authentic, there's man-made, and then there's the new, Brian was bringing up almost like a channeled information where humans are doing it, but they're claiming that, oh, I got this from elsewhere. The authentic, through a lot of testing, got a lot of good work from people. Outside of some of the visual similarities, authentic and man-made bear no resemblance to each other whatsoever.
Well, it's a good question, actually, because there are a lot of them we don't know. There's so much, there's cloaking of so much secrecy around the whole thing.
Well, there is biophysical and biochemical changes that are not displayed in any man-made.
No, that's not necessarily true. In fact, I was just listening to Colin Andrews again, our dear Colin. He actually helped address He did a control experiment with the people who were collecting soil samples for BLT research, or the Levengood is the L of BLT, who was doing the analysis on the soil samples, etc., and the grain and so on like that. And he had the people who were collecting soil samples for them create a crop circle, take samples, send it in. Levengood didn't know. Levengood came up with an analysis that said this is clearly one of the strongest responses we've seen. Now, the question is, if they know for sure that it was a human-made circle. They didn't know, the researchers didn't know, but the people who had sent them the samples know for sure. Colin knew it was a human-made circle. There were effects. Geometry has an effect. Geometry in itself has an effect. They've been using, you know, Sri yantras and mandalas and to create effects in our consciousness. It may be creating effects much further than that.
I've never seen the real bends. Those are impossible to achieve by humans at the apical node at a 90
You know,
degree.
90 degrees. Certain kinds of bends, definitely.
Expulsion cavities.
Not all the real ones have that either. So, you know, it depends a lot on, you know, it's this, I don't think at this point we're meant to have a definitive. I think we're meant to be opened up to, there's something very mysterious, I cannot tell what is actually right or wrong here. I need to just open my consciousness and let something else speak to me. Okay, enough.
Thank you
I
so
could go
much.
on and on.